Measuring peace in a complex world. Sub-Saharan Africa. Ghana has dropped from our cherished place at the top to the fourth place. Mauritius, Madagascar, Botswana, Ghana, Zambia, Namibia, Tanzania, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Angola, Malawi, the Gambia, Senegal, and on and on and on. What exactly happened? How did we drop? It's a conversation that must be had. And we'll have that conversation here because if peace drops and if peace is eroded, we know what the issues will be. You know what's happening in nearby Togo, next door. It's not been good enough a story to tell. Yasing base have had their own set of problems, and the people are not too happy about the fact that one family has ruled over their sovereign country called Togo for all these years. Overall score that Ghana garnered is 1.898. What really is happening to us? It's a conversation that we must have and a question that must be put. We'll be connecting with Dr. Ishmael Norman, President of ISTIS, and then also Professor Bafwa Jumanjia, a former UN governance advisor.
That we can give the combatants to pause, to think, and reflect on what they are doing to their own people and to the environment will be a great achievement. And I would support it 100%. Individuals can make a difference, and if each of us did our bit, collectively we'll make a major contribution.
Peace Day, 21 September, the UN International Day of Peace. A day of ceasefire and non-violence with a fixed calendar date, unanimously adopted by every member state of the United Nations. Why? Because of this man, Kofi Annan. When I went to him, I was a nobody. He didn't have to listen to me, but he did. He embraced and supported the journey of the day from a dream into a reality that now unites people in every country of the world. A day when more people are thinking and talking about peace than any other day of the year. The day when there's the largest reduction of violence on any given day. That's what Kofi Annan saw. He saw the importance of coming together as one. And out of that unity comes hope. And hope is what we need more than ever before. The 7th Secretary General of the United Nations, Nobel laureate, a man of peace, a passionate advocate of human rights and equality for all, a man who loved and respected all people and this planet. To the father of Peace Day, Kofi Annan.
The best in the morning is on
the Togo Republic in Africa.
Free. From baby essentials and kids wear to toys, skincare, education material, and so much more. Shop amazing deals on a wide range of childcare products, all under one roof. Don't miss our sessions with the Ghana Pediatric Society and all the amazing mums with the Mum Circle, a safe space for young mothers to share tips and connect. And there will be fun activities for the kids with our Kids Corner, games for the family, good food, and great vibes all around. To be a vendor, please call 0531 100 927 or 0532 200 927. It's the 3FM Baby Fair, your one-stop event for all your childcare needs.
The best in the morning is on 92.7. Sunrise on 3FM.
3FM, sunrise. 3FM.
Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy is joining us on the line. Julius Jima is Executive Director, Center for Public Policy and Economic Analysis. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Prof, let me begin this conversation with you. I'm sure you're monitoring what's happening in the Republic of Togo. The people are not too happy. They believe that the Nyasingbe family have ruled the country for a very long period and they want a change.
Yeah.
But are they going about it the right way?
Yeah, that's very true. The Nyasingbe dynasty certainly is a worry. His father, Yadima, was there for 38 years. Therefore, it's only 20 years. And it is a clear indication of what happened, the amendments in 2024 that created a new portfolio or a new structure, which he called the President of the Council of Ministers. Is certainly a clear indication that Funya Singbe is putting himself in the position of becoming more or less like a life president, because that amendment did not give a term limit, that you can be a president of the Council of Ministers for 2 terms. That provision wasn't there. So you go there for 6 years and go for 6 years and we stay forever. That is a warranting. And I think that this amendment, we should have resisted it, but the ground political atmosphere is also not right in Togo. So once they want to protest, they use brute force, they're able to silence them, and that is why it's very challenging. I think that they should have kicked against that provision, but it's very difficult. The reality in Togo is that the country political system is dominated by his party. The ruling party is in charge of everything.
Right.
So it's certainly very, very difficult. The options are not really available as to whether we even listen to the civil society group. That is the problem. So it's a bit difficult, and I'm sure that is why they are using the last resort, that is protest, to be able to call for a change. And that is the only option that they think they can do, because internal structures is difficult.
I see. Julius, let me bring you into the conversation. Now the protests are on. It means that economic activities would be adversely affected. This is a country that is not doing so well in terms of economics. Is this the right approach from the economic point of view, sir?
Good morning, Johnny. Thank you for having me. Good morning to your viewers and listeners.
Right.
I think that, like just as you said, Togo has not been doing so well. It's very unfortunate that this thing is happening with our neighbors, and this one is just next door. So, as a country, Ghana, we should be concerned about the development that is going on in Togo, especially the economy. Certainly, when there is instability, there is chaos, there's riots, things are not going on well. It is going to affect, the economic performance of a country like Togo. And then looking at what the president is doing, I think that doesn't really support the principle of good governance and democratic principles. I don't know if it is time for us to relook at, especially in our sub-region, West Africa, if democracy is something that we have to look at it and really see how we are going to use it to solve our problems. And if it is even helping us to solve our problems, there's another, school of thought that we have to argue it out. But clearly, this is really a big blow to the economy. When things happen like this, you don't expect any growth in your system. You don't, expect any confidence in your economy. Investment that is, moving around the West African coast to Central and then East Africa clearly will be halted. Let's not forget that Togo is running one of also the competitive ports that we have in Africa, and people really use their ports to be able to bring goods down to Africa. And this is going to affect it, because if there is chaos going on there, businessmen, importers wouldn't want to use their port, and they will lose revenue in that regard, because clearly you have to pay some port charges and then port duties to the government. So when these things are happening, global traders will begin to look for options where they can, reroute their trades or their goods into Africa. So it's not really good news when it comes to the economy and the management of Togo.
I see. Prof, let me bring you back into the conversation. This will mean that Togo is next door and we may have an influx of refugees if things get out of hand. Do you see the same picture from here?
Yeah, it's very clear. Togo that is in our eastern corridor. If instability, certainly Ghana will be one of the countries that will suffer most. Because if you go to the northern side, most of the communities there have Ghana-Togo borders, the same in Oti area, the same in Volta region. So if this is instability, Ghana, a greater number of them will move to Ghana. And that is why I think that it is appropriate for our government possibly to use the ECOWAS as an avenue or as a means to be able to step into the Togo affairs. That will be the smartest thing that we will do. We will use it in a diplomatic way. Ghanaian, our foreign minister, they could call for meeting, ECOWAS foreign ministers summit to discuss it, or heads of state of ECOWAS. This is the best time that they should step in to be able to get into this matter. Because that provision certainly is going to create a problem that the people think that 4 years ago will be president for life. It's very worrying. And so I think Ghana should step in a way using the ECOWAS protocols so that we are able to put this thing into work. Because refugee case will create a lot of problem for us. We are also struggling with our country. And if about thousands of people move in, it's going to put pressure on Ghana. So, but what is always worrying me is that I don't know why the sub-region, most of these things have been happening, and our regional body, ECOWAS, usually not able to step in forcefully. At least the early warning signs were there since 2024, when this emerged, when these changes were coming in. That could have been the best time that ECOWAS could step in. The protocol of ECOWAS non-interference, I think it has agreed its usefulness. It is always better to preempt that these changes that are coming, we know how it's going to end. Then ECOWAS member states step in, talk to their members. And I'm sure that ECOWAS is the better one to be able to talk to 4 years here than what the civil society group and the two main opposition parties are doing. That he has no regard for this kind of things. So external pressure is very necessary. I think ECOWAS is appropriate. We step in to prevent even this protest getting into a disorder or civil strife and all those kind of things. So this is the time for Ghana to act.
Gilchrist Olympio, I'm sure you're very familiar with that name, Prof. He's been on the front with Nyasigbe Iyadema, who's father to foreign Nyasigbe, who is now president of the Republic of Togo. He had to, at some point, even come into Ghana to seek refuge, etc. It tells you that in Togo you can protest, but it may not go somewhere. Will this be a turning point in the paradigm shift, sir?
That is what they think is the last resort, and you see, it's not their fault, because the way Togo governance structure is, people really don't have much to say. It's like a brute state, or it's like a police state. So if you express your opinion that this is not the case, they will not listen. And the police are very protective of the regime. The military are very protective of the regime. So the parliamentary system is more or less a one-party parliament. So it's like a rubber stamp. And so the structures, there's no option, because the Yadima dynasty has been there for almost 60 years. So you see that everything is in their favor. So the best is this protest, which is also very, is going to cause a lot of lives to be lost, because when it gets worse, they're going to kill them, hundreds of that. That is what it's going to be. And that's why I think that the way out of this crisis is the sub-regional intervention. They need to step in. Somebody will say that it's even late, but I don't think it's late. I don't think it's late. This is the best time, because these protests, we know the outcome, that they are not going to bow. They will still go ahead and install, they will still go ahead to make sure that Funyasimbe remain the president of the Council of Ministers. So that is that position. So this protest many lives may be lost. That is how it's going to be. But as to whether it can change the system, I doubt it.
Mr. Jima, let me, sorry, Prof, wrap up for me, yes?
Yes. Oh, no, please, you can go.
Great. Mr. Jima, so I come to you again and talk even about the provision of goods and services now that the protests are on, you see the videos and you see shops are closed, which means that people may not necessarily be getting the things that ordinarily on a day-to-day basis they get. Again, talk to me from an economic point of view. How is this going to affect the people?
Well, I think the impact will be greater than the way we are looking at what is happening at the moment. The things are not so good. Free flow of people, movement of goods and services across the borders. This is something that is being characterized by, even enjoying membership from ECOWAS, that is the Economic Community of West African States, so which we've been preaching about. Free movement of people and goods. There's also AFCTA, Africa Free Trade Continental Trade Area. All these things are just to promote investment and trade within the African region. And then we belong to the West, we have our ECOWAS, but the same objective still persists for all of us. So Togo, that has been one of the major hubs in terms of movement of goods. Ghana, we are beneficiary of their ports. In times where, our port duties and charges and the taxes on our port have been increasing,
right.
Investors or traders find, alternative routes by using Togo and move their goods into the country. So when these things are happening, clearly what we should be looking at is where we don't even expect or we should be praying that the importers or, the businessmen will not start increasing prices, which we have also been battling, that is inflation. And I know by now, finance minister and the ministry are all looking at the development that is happening in Togo. So it's a big blow for us, especially Ghana, because we are one of their biggest beneficiaries in terms of their port and as well as the movement of people. In fact, I've been to the borders and you could see on a daily basis the kind of people that move from our Flower to Togo and back just like that, like going to Accra and coming to, just like that. So people just move in and go do their things and come back on a daily basis. And that is what is going to be affected. When that happens, of course, total economic development will come to a halt. We are looking at even growing our income, making sure that we grow our revenues as a country, as an African country. We are looking at poverty reduction and they're looking at food security. If these things are happening in a country like Togo, then the situation will be dire. We are even looking at, where we can reduce inequality and inequity. For instance, if we go to Togo, you can see the gap between the rich and poor, very huge. Ghana here, we are doing well by closing it. The middle class is closing it with the rich and then even with the lower class. Now people are doing some form of economic activity, so we are a little closing it up. But for Togo, it's clear. You can see that inequality gap, very big. Most of their, access to basic, commodities like accommodation, decent housing, free education or good or quality education,
right.
Basic needs for human beings to survive. You don't really see it in the country. So in a situation where this thing is happening, it means that they will move from, 0 to maybe negative, 100. And that is really bad. And that is why as a country, Ghana, it is our responsibility. By now, I believe that, our foreign ministry and the president will be looking at how best they can move into, and discuss some of the things and try to offer a helping hand to our neighbors, because as we believe, some of them too are Ghanaians, especially our brothers and sisters from the Volta region and across, as we know, Togoland that we used to know. So they are people, they are family. We just need to move in and then with the help of their government, trying to bring some form of stability and stabilize whatever that is going on in the country at the moment.
Prof, there's an earlier point you made about ECOWAS and also AU, and I want to further explore that point. There are many who believe that ECOWAS, AU, they do not have the teeth to bite. You see the military brutality that's happening in that country, people being whipped left, right, center, for being out there. And you ask yourself whether or not we have a regional, position on what's happening in Togo. Do you get a sense that ECOWAS and AU can actually bite?
Yes, ECOWAS is not toothless. ECOWAS can really bite. And ECOWAS has carried out an intervention in Liberia, Sierra Leone to bring order. And so there's record that ECOWAS can strike. There's evidence ECOWAS has carried out intervention in some areas. What is always happening here is that the timely manner of intervention, that is the problem with the sub-region. ECOWAS usually does not interfere. ECOWAS does not intervene. ECOWAS always try to wait until we are in crisis. And that is the aspect that is worrying. Because we have a lot of preventive mechanisms that we can trigger, get in, especially as March 2024. ECOWAS should have stepped in there because the signs were clear that they were going to amend the constitution and create this outlet. That would have been the point that ECOWAS will come in there. ECOWAS, the Council of the Wise, they are there. They get in, talk to them, please respect the constitution, let us see. There's nothing intervention. We should be able to get to intervene and then to remain aloof, and then we'll get into this area. So ECOWAS can buy. It's just that ECOWAS usually will wait until we get to the West stage. And ECOWAS can move in there, give them an order, and they will restore it. I tell you that ECOWAS, if ECOWAS issue a statement on this, it can change. But usually ECOWAS wouldn't do that. They wait until we have a full-blown political crisis before ECOWAS step in there. Otherwise, I believe that ECOWAS can deal with this. And Paul Yesingbe will listen to ECOWAS. He knows what ECOWAS can do. Right now, because ECOWAS is not acting right, it is emboldening most of these leaders to do that.
Right.
Because it happened in Mali, nothing happened. Burkina, nothing happened. Niger, ECOWAS said they would intervene, but they didn't. They didn't come out with force. And so, Paul Yesingbe will also be emboldened that yes, I'm going to change it. I will stay in power and nothing will happen. And so that is why gradually, if we are not careful, most of the West African states will move towards military regime. Well, that is where we are going. Because ECOWAS doesn't strike, ECOWAS doesn't step in at the right time. We wait until we have a full war or crisis. And that is worrying.
Now, the question on the minds of many Ghanaians is that our president sits here. Togo is next door. Ivory Coast is next door. Burkina Faso is next door. And Burkina Faso has their own set of troubles. Ivory Coast have had their own set of troubles. Now Togo. And some people are asking, when will our president speak? Should he be speaking at all, Prof?
Yes. You see, that is why our case is complex. You get onto this alliance of the Sahel state, the Mali, Niger, they are already military, and they have formed their own alliance. It's a breakaway from ECOWAS. That's fine. Now, Ghana and Ivory Coast, or Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, are closest to step in. And if you go to Cote d'Ivoire, the same constitutional maneuverings are going on there. It is all clear that President Ouattara has intention to run. And he is also putting himself to become like president for life. That is why he's keen. So how is he going to talk to Togo? He doesn't have the political clout to say it. He doesn't have the morals. Because what he's doing is what he's also doing. So he can't intervene. And you remember when ECOWAS wanted to send delegation to Senegal, they wanted Ouattara to go to Senegal. He said they don't want Ouattara, because Ouattara is West. So they stopped him. So in this case, Ivory Coast cannot step into Togo because he's equally in that shoe. The best country is Ghana. Most of them respect Ghana, our democratic structures, and Ghana is the best one to step in there. And I'm sure that if Ghana foreign minister step in, or even our head of state, our president, His Excellency, get into it, I'm sure the people will listen to him because they know that Ghana have a very stable system and our structures work. Then that will be a better option. Ghana is in a better position than any of these West African states.
I see.
Possibly Nigeria. Yes, Nigeria is somehow better.
Now, my final question to you, Prof, is this. You look at the West African sub-region, we mentioned Niger, we mentioned South Sudan, many others who are not having it too easy, and you have military governments in place. We have seen what happened in Togo previously. What advice do you have going forward as to how Ghana can insulate itself from getting into this kind of situation?
Yeah, I think it's a bit difficult. Most of this country, and I think that multi-party democracy seems not to be going on well in Africa. It's just like in the early time of independence, people were advocating that democracy is not in line with African culture. They are trying to connect democracy to African chieftaincy system where you become a chief for life. So other people advocate that we need that kind of change so that our president will be there for life. And for life also means that many people will not have the chance to rule. And governance, the power belongs to the people. So once you take the power, the people out, then it becomes a problem. So that kind of group of people are there. And if you look at our system gradually, most of our leaders, once they get into the power, they try to entrench it. They want to hold on to power by whatever means. And that is a growing trend. Whether in West Africa or the rest of them, you go to Cameroon, you go everywhere, Uganda, he has just declared he'll be contesting again. So it's gradually, Africa, that is the norm. You stay in power, you stay perpetual. That is a political development, a political culture that I think is not in line with democracy. But we also claim that that is our version of democracy. We in Africa are not so much enthused with multi-party democracy, but more or less a one-party democracy. You have one party that will stay in power. You have one leader who will stay in power. That is where we are moving towards. But many Africans, we are not sure of it yet. It is the elites who are taking that path. The people don't like it, but they have less say. So I think we need a brainstorming as a continent. We need to reflect, possibly to redefine our democracy. Democracy that is led by multi-party is failing. Constitutional governments are struggling. So what is the vision for Africa? And remember, Africa have moved from multi-party democracy to military rules. We didn't experience a lot of development in Africa. And that is why we have to, from at least in the 90s, we started advocating moving towards multi-party democracy. And that is how Ghana will have to make a U-turn in 92 by adopting the same thing. And I think that democracy brings some development down some of this dictatorship, because you know that the people who have voted for you will demand accountability. You're under pressure to develop. And that is the good side of democracy. But now that our leadership are moving away from it, dictatorship, whatever you say, you don't need their vote, development wouldn't come. So it's a bit difficult situation that we are. The democracy that we have praised gradually is going back. And that is not good for us.
Prof. Kipo Sunyezi, thank you very much indeed for your time. We're grateful.
Thank you.
Julius, you have the closing thoughts. You look at coffee, cocoa, cotton, yams, cassava, tapioca, corn, beans, rice, pearl millet, sorghum, livestock. You have about 42% of the country being employed through these means. Now you have this trouble. From an economic point of view, what do you advise?
Jenny, thank you so much. I think that I like the submission, the latter part by Prof. Right. One of the things that we have witnessed, or the little research we have embarked on, is that in Africa, because our governance system emanated from the idea of kinship, chieftaincy, you see that a family will move to a particular place because they went there first. They become overlord of that place, and these are the bedrock and the fundamentals of our form of what governance or kinship in Africa, and that thing is still there. So in as much as we adopted democracy and we want to practice multi-party and all that, still it looks like we are not there yet, and that is why we see some of these things going on. So it means that planted in our inherent minds, stemming from our culture, our traditional system, or everything, we are more of, one party or one leader ruling for life. And that is why sometimes we get to see some of these countries in Africa trying to move back. But the issue here is about development. Countries are moving, way ahead of us as an African, nation, and we also have to leapfrog. So I think that just as Prof was saying, our president will have to step in and probably issue a statement across, and then as things, he's respected within our sub-region, I believe that they will give him some hearing and listen to him so that they can restore some form of stability and peace in Togo. Because all our neighbors are just about tilting to that direction. It's just, fortunately for us in Ghana, we are a bit okay. But Now, looking at the economic activities going around, Togo, and predominantly one of the economic activity is agriculture. Ghana, some of our families even have their farms in Togo. They go to farms and they move back to Ghana to come and sleep. And that is what we have witnessed within almost all our borders in the country, like Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, and then Burkina Faso. So clearly, the Minister for Agric has a responsibility in this particular development that is going on. Recently, there was a launch in this agric policy that the ministry is embarking on. And I believe that some of the staples that we need will be taken into consideration so that we can get access to some of these basic commodities that we rely on and consume on a daily basis. You've just mentioned about, 7 of them. It's something that we need to support our farmers in that region. By now, the Ministry of Agri should be, sending some emissaries to the place to just go and then have some support or offer some local support to the people over there, and then also to the farmers that we have in the area. But collectively, what we should be moving now is to offer some form of security, both in person and then in household, because the way the thing is going, if there is no taking any moves to the border, Aflap will be affected, and that will mean that there will be a state of emergency declarance, or at least they have to close the border, which will not be, be beneficiary to us. So I believe the minister should be monitoring the situation, finance ministry should be monitoring the situation, as well as the Minister for Finance, because clearly, when it comes to import, they have a say, and then the Ministry of Trade as well. Collectively, the president clearly will have a responsibility in managing some of these affairs that is going on in Togo, so that we will not suffer too much as a country because we trade with them, and they are neighbors, they are family, they are brothers. At the end of the day, once peace is restored, once stability is restored, that is where you begin to look at your economic figures and your economic activity. Without that, there's nothing economic that you will do that will prosper in that particular region and then the country as a whole. So our advice is that our people will act swiftly and they will be ahead of the situation so that it will not escalate into Ghana.
Right. Thank you, Julius Jima. We're grateful for your time. Let's go on to the other phone line now and speak with Dr. Doc. Doc, thank you very much for your time. You are a trainer of security experts and you are a security expert yourself. If you look at what's happening in Togo, would you say they are conducting themselves in the way that ought not to jeopardize the entire sub-region?
Obviously not. I mean, what is happening can lead to destruction with regards to the governance system, not only in Togo, but we here in Ghana and then the neighboring countries. Now, this has happened before, for the record, where the realms of power was passed on to father to son. There were protests, civil society joined. People died, nothing came out of it. We've had this, president rule for long, just manipulated the constitution to suit his, personal goal. And then these were the early signs that were given to what he did, that something was going to, it was just a matter of time. Now, what have we done with regards to we sub-regional, ECOWAS, regional, AU? What did we do when we see this? Now, the problem is that the protocols of good governance and democratic practices, the frameworks on peace and security architecture, all talks about what? Security, making the people first, and then also ensuring that you rule per the governance system that we all know, which is multi-party democracy, respecting the fundamental rights of what the citizens. But this hasn't happened. And then you have very strange, protocols stating that non-interference. So then, it limits you, the regional bodies, even to interfere in internal matters. All these frameworks and protocols need a relook at. So if you tell me non-interference, then it means you don't have any right to tell me to stop what I'm doing. But then what you're doing goes against the very fundamentals that we are preaching that every leader should accept. Remember what happened in Senegal when Macky Sall wanted to manipulate the system and then delay elections? this same issue happened in Burkina Faso when Blaise Compaoré manipulated the constitution, and it led to what? Agitations, protests, and then the coups happened. The list goes on and on. This has a very dire consequences, especially on we, Ghana here. The regional bodies, South-Regional bodies do not act. There wasn't preemptive actions enough with regards to picking up the early warnings from bilateral consultations, and leaders sat down, and this has happened.
If you look at how the military and other security bodies are conducting themselves in Togo, is that what you teach them to do? Because I know that a lot of them come also into Ghana to come to your school to be taught the rudiments and the way to conduct themselves. But look at what they are doing on the streets of Togo.
We don't teach the personnel that come here for training on brutalizing civilians. We build the capacity and knowledge with regards to how to understand conflict situations, analyze the conflict situations, apply the appropriate conflict tools and theories to analyze the situations, which will give you better solutions. We train people to understand how to protect civilians. We train people to understand conflict management, prevention, and resolution mechanisms. So at each point in time, to apply the various tools to achieve maximum success. Under no circumstances that a training institution such as this would train and encourage personnel or trainees to use violence against other people. That's not what we do here.
Now, Doc, before I let you go, there are concerns that the West African sub-regional power, or if you like, ECOWAS, should now be sending troops into Togo to help stabilize the situation. What do you think of that?
Under what circumstances would the ECOWAS implement that action? Okay, we had it in Niger. It didn't happen. So then, what merits that you send, on what grounds that you send, if you have a very protocol stating non-interference and non-aggression, what does that mean? Hey, do you understand my point?
Right.
So we need to look at all these protocols. Now, the only way which we understand and has worked is what? Preventive diplomacy, the mediations that have to come in. And if of course we rely on our president who has led mediation talks before, he can, he's close to the president, he can talk to him brother to brother, and then see the need to de-escalate the situation, because of the implications on we Ghanaians are even much dire than what we think. We are talking about not only the influx of asylum seekers, which we have experienced before in the 2000s, but we are talking about armed groups who could infiltrate and then find their way into Ghana. As for the economic aspect, is there, okay? But the security aspect is more, challenging. Assuming these things, escalate, we don't have antidote to it. What we're going to have on our hands will be challenging.
Prof, I want to thank you very much indeed for your time, but a popular question just came through now asking us what you suggest we do at the borders and even those porous entry points into the country so we insulate ourselves from any form of insurgency and the influx of refugees. What do you advise?
One, with regards to the unapproved routes, we should identify them, which are no authorities, immigration, customs, they know the areas, DNI, NID. They should identify these unapproved routes, man them, and then make sure nobody gets through. The approved routes we have, you only have to boost the personnel there, and then you implement your emergency preparations procedures. What do you need to do when you have influxes? You need to involve the UNHCR, the High Commissioner for Refugees, the NADMO. You need to invite the Ghana Refugee Board who would come in. All these organizations are part of the security apparatus themselves, identifying a holding area when there is an influx for these asylum seekers to now place them. You have to conduct a thorough screening to identify who member coming in, and isolate all these security persons and armed elements away from the civilian population. They are given a different kind of treatment. You don't keep them in the same place so that the country would not accuse you of mobilizing or assisting or aiding to mobilize armed elements against them. I think our emergency response mechanism should be activated by now, and we should preempt, not wait to react to the situations.
Prof, I thank you very much indeed for your time. We're grateful.
Thank you, boss.
Dr. Doka is a trainer of security personnel and is also a security expert, joining us here on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.
3FM Sunrise.